Welcome back to the Chip Lunch Podcast.
Or more Joel eating the microphone.
More commonly known as Joel couldn't get a guest on.
Oh, this is accurate.
Here we are. OG3.
Yeah, we plan
That's
these,
it.
don't we? We incrementally
100%.
put them in every couple of guests.
100%.
Definitely.
I do,
Just to
definitely.
reflect
Yep.
and ruminate.
And review and just bring it
Like a
back to the center.
breath of fresh air.
That's
Bring
it.
it back to the center.
Where's that from?
Just realign.
Realign.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
It's like when you were the guest, it was pretty like you don't want
Boring.
it to go too far off the rails, you know?
I was
Like,
glad I wasn't on that one.
Nah, it was very good. It was actually really encouraging. It was good to have one with you on it,
Yeah,
Bill.
I love listening to myself, so.
Yeah. I bet you've listened to it, haven't you?
About half.
Amazing.
It was actually interesting doing it because it was like, oh yeah, all those things.
All those things.
And it's also nice to hear that, and then you're like, oh, I've come a long way since then.
Yeah.
That was nice. That's why I listened to half of it.
Was there
Not
anything
the
in
bit
there
that I cried.
You crying it? I'll
Yeah.
have to make a gif out of that.
Was there anything in there that you didn't expect to talk about?
I think more just like looking at it when someone's asking you about it and the memories coming up that you didn't realize that you still had.
Yeah,
That's the thing. Because I actually kept going back, oh, I remember this happened and this happened and this happened. But you thought you'd like, maybe not buried them, but you thought they weren't there.
yeah, it's kind of
That's
Took a
what I
back
actually
seat.
enjoyed about it, yeah.
That's
And
really
that's
cool.
what I'm saying, like those memories are like, oh, that's right. I didn't used to enjoy my life as much as I do now. And like I was saying, see how far I came. I think that's what I have come, I think,
really
since
cool.
that time. And I don't think I barely scratched the surface. There were so many other things. I probably just talked too much.
Part two.
Yeah, we'll do a part 2 later. Next week. When I don't get another guest. Yeah. What's happening, lads? OG3, back on the Chip Lunch podcast.
we are
I feel like
back on the
we haven't
Chip
done
Lunch
this for a
podcast.
while.
We haven't?
What was it? The last one was at the start of the year
Yeah.
Okay.
because we're talking about New Year's resolutions.
Oh, we were. Okay. Excellent.
Don't remember what any of those were.
Because we've surpassed them.
We
Is
have.
that-
Yeah, we've already got
February.
Because there was only one.
Yeah.
Not be as much of a douchebag. Yeah, cool. What's happening, guys? What do you think about? What's the crack?
Oh, I don't know. Youth's back on tonight, so it's kind of been focusing on that. So Friday Gathering and Youth will be back on after a couple of weeks off after Easter, which has been both good and bad. I enjoy the chillness that Friday becomes when we don't necessarily kick on all night, but also at the same time, what the heck do people do on Friday night, eh? It's so boring.
That's what I was talking about in my podcast, right? When
so boring.
everyone went and led youth, and me and Greaves were like, "What do we do now?"
Usually we don't have a meeting on during the holidays on a Friday for the express reason of we'll give the youth leaders a break and like it's like give them 2 Fridays to do whatever they want to do on a Friday, and we were forced to put one on a Friday because no one else could do it, and I was just like, yes, that's so good because I was not doing anything else.
No.
We hung out at Greaves's. It was great.
It was unreal.
legend.
It was the best.
We had a meeting, had some pizza, hung
the
out,
dream.
and then we watched the footy, and then we were hanging out afterwards. It was
footy,
great.
yeah.
It was great.
That's good, and especially for someone like Ethan, who's a ginormous extrovert.
Yeah, I was like, I need more people.
I need to see more people because I haven't seen enough this week.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. I haven't been to church on a Saturday for last few weeks. And
Well,
This is actually an
that's been-
intervention.
this is an intervention. And
Because you weren't preaching anywhere else.
That'll
Like
be
you
the
said.
title. That'll be Chip Lunch. Why has Ethan stopped going to church?
Yeah, falling away.
drifting.
Falling away from me, like that corn song. Is it falling away?
What's the Venn diagram of corn fans and Chip Lunch listeners?
Oh, it can't be many. Pete Sad. Is Pete Sad listening to Chip Lunch?
No, I don't
No
think
way
so.
he would listen.
He would
to
know. He would know corn though.
He would know corn. I don't think he's listening.
Yeah, it's falling away from me. That's what that song's called. Anyway, you haven't been to church recently.
Yeah, and I was gonna say
happening?
something. I can't remember why.
Oh, sorry. That's my fault.
It wasn't just to talk about me not going to church. The first week was because I was at the River Convention out at Brewarrina, and that was a really cool time, and is something that I would love to. It would be really cool if we got some of those guys on the podcast at some point.
Yeah.
Because it is some really there's some awesome stuff happening out west, and it would be sick if people kept them in their prayers, because it's a really cool thing. So it's a Revival Church. We are friends with a group of Indigenous people out in Brewarrina, which is so Dubbo's 5 hours away. Brewarrina is another 5 hours past Dubbo west, and it is actually awesome. Like, it's so fun. And they just, one of the things that the weekend starts, and one of the guys we're mates with, Ike, gets up to lead the service, and we're by the river, and it's beautiful, and there's birds everywhere, and it's amazing. And Ike goes, all right, guys, everybody look at your watches. If you've got watches, now take them off, throw them on the ground, and jump up and down, because we're not looking at them again for the rest of the week. And
There's a more relaxed relationship with time.
I thrive in that, right? Like, it's the best. It's so good.
Yeah, right.
And
I think I would find it hard, but
I think some people did, and some people would, but that's my cup of tea. I'm like, just saying something's on at 4 o'clock and it being on at 6 is like, I have no issues with that. I'm like, I'll be there from 4 and I'll just hang out, and then it'll start when they start, which is awesome.
I think if I have fair warning, then I'm not going to get upset about it.
That's fair. Yeah. Well, like, if he gets up and says, like, dude, it's going to be lax. Like, you're fine. Yep. But yeah, that was a really beautiful, really cool time, and would recommend if you go to Soli's and a river convention comes up as a thing you could go to. Couldn't recommend it more.
Worth the trip.
100%.
Worth the long slog out there.
Yeah. I think the
road trips are fun too.
I think there's nothing. All right. There's not much better.
Yeah.
Then we talk about friendship a lot, and we talk about how you become better mates with one another through spending time with one another.
Yep.
And for example, that's like why we rant and rave about how good Friday is, or how good staying on a Saturday night is, or staying after church on a Sunday morning, which a lot of people do, and all sorts of stuff like that. And it's why one of the reasons we eat dinner together, and all these reasons, all these things we do. But I reckon a road trip is one of the best things for just growing in relationship and friendship with people. It is awesome.
Yeah. Partially
because you're stuck for hours, and you have to make conversation. And so often that conversation turns into, so tell me about yourself. Like, let's learn what you're interested in, and you'll learn what I'm interested in, and we'll like get excited about the same things or not excited about the same things. And then when we get bored, we can talk about church, because that's something we have in common.
Only when we get bored.
Well, no, but like if it comes to all right, we're talking for ages about this thing that neither of us, like, if we're not finding something that works, we'll find something that works eventually. Like, I think it's really cool and when I say works, I mean, you're not always going to find something you have in common with someone, which is fine. And that's just the nature of relationship. But it's really cool to be able to go, oh, like, how do you become a Christian? Like, ask the questions you hear us ask.
And if you get bored, put the Chipmunks podcast on.
Yes, exactly right.
Learn about someone else.
10 hours is a long time to talk.
Yeah, and then you can just complain about, I can't stand that Joel guy. Does he ever stop talking about school? Like, yeah.
But yes, that's something that's been happening. It was very good, and would recommend.
Brandon, what's college like at the moment?
Very busy. I'm
Very
kind
busy.
of. It's actually insane, to be honest. I'm entering like just a couple of months that are going to be the busiest I will have ever been and will ever be, and then it will kind of end with week away. I think I'm going to be a free soul on week away. Be very happy.
Wow.
So yeah, it's kind of looking down the barrel of a couple of very busy months, but also knowing that week away is going to be the best.
What? For those of us that hadn't been to college, what's a typical week look like?
How about I just put it this way? They recently have restructured the course because they got
what course is that?
Well, the overall course.
Okay.
So from Lewis's year, where we were chatting to Lewis last week, he's in first year. Yep. They've restructured the course because they've realised that a manageable load for a student at the moment to do things well is 4 units, and we're doing 7 at the moment.
Wow.
So it's just the way that things fall with people being on study leave and all these things. And that happened to us last year as well. And yeah, it's just craziness. So just means a very front-ended year, and it'll be very busy now. And also there's a few extracurricular things I have to do, like preach and a few other things around that. That just all happen to be in like May and June. So yeah, it's going to be very busy. And I'm both not looking forward to it and also looking forward to it being over.
And does that mean you have, like, is it kind of the same as uni? Do you have like lectures and tutorials and stuff like that? Yeah. But it's just about the Bible and philosophy and history and
philosophy, doctrine, Old Testament, New Testament.
That's 4. You got 3 to go.
What are the other ones? M&M, Ministry and Mission.
M&M, not Marshall Mathers.
No.
2 to go.
IMR, Intentional Ministry Reflection.
Okay.
And what's the last one? I don't know.
That's
I'll
all right.
Remember later.
You've got a few on. Got a bit on.
Yeah. So.
And you have to do assignments for all that. And
I had an assignment due last week. I've got one due next week. It's very fun. I'm generally a soul that very much. Same thing when I was in high school. I really loved like the first 5 weeks of term because I'm just learning stuff. I'm like, this is great. Why don't I do more of this? It's very enjoyable. And then the assessments start coming, and I start realizing.
Do you prefer exams or assignments?
Oh, that's a good question. For my last degree of graphic design, I preferred assignments.
Yep.
For this degree, I prefer exams.
Why?
Because the assignments are often so big that they'll consume your whole life, whereas an exam, you kind of just like walk in, do it, and walk out and never think about it again, which has been... So, yeah, I think different responses to both. But, yeah, it's interesting because it's just a hectic time. We had mission right before Easter where we went away and spent some time with some churches.
I was going to ask you about that.
Had a great time. But, yeah, it's just busy. Yeah.
Well, tell us about mission. So you go away for a week. Where'd you go and what did you do?
So we, obviously, you're split up into things called chaplaincy groups. So everyone's in a chaplaincy group. It's like a Bible study. You meet up once a week with, normally the chaplains are a member of faculty and someone else and a chaplain who will come in and hang out. And then you go and do mission with your chaplaincy group. So you go and to another church and you just do whatever they want you to do for a week, basically. And that can look like lots of different things. So Lewis's experience of mission was super different from mine because the churches had different goals with what they were trying to do, and every mission normally looks a bit different. And you've got some people going to Alice Springs. Other years they have, obviously COVID has kind of changed that over the last couple of years, but normally it's overseas or interstate or a little bit further away. There's lots of different options. And then every couple of years they'll do a super focused one, like everyone will go to Wollongong, like or everyone will go to the Western Sydney or something. So yeah, it just looks like lots of different things. I had the opportunity to go to Western Sydney, Mount Druitt, Wayland and Oakhurst churches and visit them and see what they were doing. It was really encouraging. I really enjoy getting to dip my toe in and see what other people are doing and how God's changing those other communities through people. Obviously, lots of different things happening and I think it was really cool to see people who love Jesus just expressing that in lots of different ways. There was super diverse ethnicities in both churches, a Liberian congregation, a Sudanese congregation, just doing things in their cultural ways, and that was really cool. And like the Sudanese congregation, the whole service was in Dinka, their language, and it was interesting to sit through a church service that wasn't in English and kind of experience what that would be like if you were, say, someone who didn't speak English and were trying to come along to church. That was really interesting. So cool experiences. I think, like Heath said, with the River Convention, it's fun to get to go and check out things like that. Obviously, with our relationship with our friends in Bree, it's nice that that's a more long-term thing that we've committed to and been experiencing, and I think we can see the fruit of that. But it is nice to just get to go and do some fellowship with some other brothers and sisters for a little while, which was really cool.
Do you want to we just recorded a shock absorber that you were on, and you talked about how there was one service that you were at, and it was at 10 a.m.
That was 3 missions ago.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay,
Yeah.
but you were just not happy that there was no meal.
So yeah, that was in first year. I was bemoaning the fact that we had gone to visit a church, and this was not a low socioeconomic church. I like to say that, so it's not like, oh, I can't believe they didn't feed us. No, I was just like experiencing as I've said, like I came to faith through Guymer Anglican and Soul Revival, so this is kind of like been my jam and the only thing that I've known. So I'm visiting a church and like finishing up after and just like standing around being super hungry was a new experience, being like, oh man, I really wish we could.
Where's the meal?
Like, guys? Like, what is this?
Unreal.
And I think that, yeah, it encourages me in the way that I think about how, like Eith said with the example of a road trip, nothing replaces time spent together, and a meal not only stops me from whinging about being hungry, but also it's time spent together, and I think we all really appreciate.
It's always good conversation over meals.
Oh yeah, I've really found the last couple of weeks I've just had some absolute cracker conversations after the sermon.
Yeah, right.
Dinner. It's been so great.
Do you think that's precipitated by the sermon? Like
yeah, absolutely. Like about the sermon and coming out of what has been spoken in the sermon. And I've also really enjoyed the last couple of weeks. I've got to sit down with some of the older generations at church, which has been sick. Just so good to go and chill and sit with a few different generations who have different ideas about what was happening in the sermon, different applications or thoughts that I would never have had, and just getting to eat dinner together has been really, really fun. I think it's something we get to do every week, which I think we can take for granted sometimes. Yeah, it's really great. Yeah, I don't know how you feel about that, Joel. How do you feel about that?
I feel great.
Are we cutting into what we talked about on Shock Absorber?
No, not at all. I don't. We can always have some cross promotion. That's fine. You can, if you subscribe to the Chip Lunch podcast, you can also subscribe to the Shock Absorber podcast. I've been thinking about somewhat, like to a degree, about what you're saying. I feel like, speaking specifically about Saturday nights here at Kirrawee, I feel like there's a bit of momentum building. I don't know why that is, but I think it could be around Jesus. Yes, I think he's definitely taken care of it. But I think there's also maybe a bit of rising commitment from everyone coming to church. And I'm really excited by that. And as I've said many times before, that coming to church is the highlight of my week. And the fact that it happens every week is just, if I miss it once, I feel not empty, but I feel less whole, I think. And I think it's partly because we've talked about extroversion and introversion before, but I love being able to just talk to heaps of people. It's just, I don't know, I just like being able to do that. And I don't get as many chances to do that as I used to, just because of family and all that kind of thing. And you're busy with work and things like that. And, I'm pretty busy on Saturdays with 3 different football activities going on with my children on Saturdays. So, but it's what's been really cool, I think, in conjunction with that, is that someone from my son's football team who I coach has asked about coming to church.
Sick.
Which is, I'm not sure if I've ever had that before as a Christian. So that really excites me, because that means that I'm, probably living it out in some way to think that's appealing to come. But of course, that God is in total control of that situation. But that's been really exciting. And I think, Ethan, you've been saying a couple of times, I've noticed in conversations that you and I had, about changing the world. And yes. I feel like there may be a little bit of momentum gathering behind that. Just, I don't know, maybe it's like the Asbury revival that happened over in the US where was it a prayer meeting? I'll have to double check this.
It was a prayer meeting.
Yep.
It was a prayer meeting, and it ran for days.
Yep.
I'll have
People from all over the country were
people from all over the US were rocking up to Asbury, which I believe is. I'll have to find. I'll throw to you in a second. But I just feel like there's something happening, and it might be small, but I feel like God's working. That's probably what I'm saying, and I think we've talked about friendship a lot, and friendship as leaders on this podcast, and also on the Shockers Orba in the last like 4 or so episodes. We've talked about how important being friends as leaders is, and that translates a lot into how we do church together. And I think there is an appeal about that. And I had another really good conversation with one of our members from that goes to Kirrawee on Sunday mornings about things like that too. And she was just sharing some things that I thought was really encouraging, that she felt like willing to share it. But we kind of got to, that's what we do at church, is we're reconciled to each other so we can bear with one another's burdens, so we can keep moving forward, and therefore we're serving Jesus. And I think that's just what I've been thinking about too. But Ethan, why do you keep saying change the world? Because I think that's really interesting.
Well, we keep saying that Jesus changes everything, right? We say that if you've been listening to sermons from Soulies, if you've been chatting to Stu at all, if you've been listening to the Shock Absorber stuff, and even this, we talk about how what we do. Why do we do what we do at Soul Revival? We do it because we believe that Jesus changes everything. And that isn't just Jesus changes me. It is that. It isn't just Jesus changes, I don't know, the carpet. It isn't just Jesus changes like what my Sunday looks like. It's everything, right? And so if we're doing stuff because we believe he changes everything, like that means he can change the world. And let's do that. Like, everything we do through him and because of him and with him. And it's not, so this student body president, Alison Perferter, was in mandatory chapel at this university in Asbury.
It's the
Asbury University in Wilmore, Kentucky.
Yeah, which is a Methodist private Christian university. Yeah, but it's had a big part in the forming of the Methodist because of John Wesley. Yeah,
and so this is in February this year. She was at this prayer meeting, and one of the students decided to just confess some of their sins in the small group, and they prayed for that person, and then they just didn't stop. For seemingly no reason at first on Wednesday, February the 8th, it didn't end. That's kind of the logistical side of what's been going on. On the deeper side of things, what's been happening here since Wednesday is there's a young army of believers who are rising to claim Christianity, the faith as their own, as a young generation and as a free generation. And that's why people can't get enough. And it's this really interesting group of people who are going, yeah, we're just going to keep praying and because we're talking to the God of the universe, and that's exciting, and that's life-changing. And look at how he's changed my life. And I'm going to invite all these people from all over the country to get excited about how we've changed each other's lives. We're going to keep praying that he's going to keep doing that and do it more, right? And that's a really exciting thing. Universities all over the place started trying to do the same thing, having prayer meetings, and it was getting in the news, and all sorts of stuff was happening. And it's just a really beautiful expression of people young people claiming faith as their own. And it's not just that we're doing it because our parents did it or whatever, or because we're at a Christian university, which is what their case is, right?
Yeah. But the claiming the faith as your own is actually a big part of the revivals, previous revivals, which was come out of the era of when you just belonged to a certain faith because that was like the kingdom you were part of.
Yeah.
It was, kicked off obviously with some people like Martin Luther and things like that of you need to take on your responsibility of your faith for yourself. Very similar to one of what they, the exploration and expansion of the gospel through Acts and things like that. It was the same thing, as you got to take on your faith for your own responsibility. The reason I jumped in there, is that our friend Michael Greaves sent me an article which is on the Wall Street Journal, so it was behind a paywall. So I asked ChatGPT to summarize it for me.
That's great.
Which was actually Braden's idea before.
Genius.
But it says the article discusses the unexpected increase in religious interest among young people, despite the general trend of declining religious affiliation. This is in the US. It explores possible reasons for this trend, such as the need for community and purpose in a disconnected world, and how religious institutions are adapting to appeal to younger generations, which we can discuss that. The article also acknowledges that young people's relationships with religion can be complex and varied, which I think is quite interesting. Let's talk about this bit where it says religious institutions adapting to appeal to younger generations. When you hear that, do you feel...
You say that again?
Religious institutions are adapting to appeal to younger generations. Does that make you cringe a little bit? Because do you think that Jesus is really... I think Jesus is the same, regardless of what age we are. But there are things you need to adapt to.
I think there's practice stuff that is flexible.
Yep. Just how what you're doing.
Yeah. I think the why we're doing it is the same. And the how we're doing it, the strategies that they're having are probably the same. And what's then happening is they're going, well, I need to shift some stuff, because either all these young people getting old enough to have voices, or in their eyes, like they're going, oh, these young people are actually either completely dropping out of the church or dropping in and going, this is amazing, but it's not ours, and we're going to try and make it ours. And I think it's really important to try and just encourage young people with that concept. I was at the lunchtime group at Kirawee High today, and one of the things I talked about was this change the world idea, actually. And I was talking about it, and I was like, what if we had 70 kids here sitting around this table by the end of the term? And then one of the boys from church goes, oh, what about 190? And the boy next to him goes, oh, you're dreaming. And I was like, yeah, maybe, but is that a bad thing? Like if that's the perspective we have of, there's actually no way that 190 kids can go to chip lunch every week because there's no chips. Like that's the thought, right? And it's like, well, actually, no, Jesus is here every week with us.
It's a gospel opportunity again, as we were talking about on the Shock Absorber. Yeah. Sorry, I was agreeing.
No, for context, what is, for someone who would have listened to only just this one?
So that's something we talked about, and it's actually something that Stu tweeted out.
Oh, yes.
Last year, actually. He said then, not just, let me get it, hang on, I've got it here, let me tell you properly. Uno momento. Ministry is not about solving one problem at a time. It is about moving from one gospel opportunity to another. And I think that's been a really helpful framework for me to go, if something isn't going right, I think about the other Saturday night here at Kirawee, one of the TVs stopped working. We had like literally 5 minutes before the service, and we're trying to figure out what was going on. We didn't know how to reset the router for it. And then at some point we're like, it's not that bad a problem. Could be a gospel opportunity. Who knows? So then I just told Jared, who was servicing, like, hey, can you just let people know that there's a technical problem with it? And it was all fine. There was no complaints. We just moved on for it. But I think there's obviously bigger issues to discuss, but how you approach them, whether it's a gospel opportunity or it's a problem, dictates how you deal with those issues that you come up against. And I think about, we went and saw the Jesus Revolution movie. This is something we can talk about a bit more, but they invite Christian hippies into the church. One of the main characters invites, sorry, there's a little bit of a spoiler alert if you haven't seen it. I recommend going to see it. It was a lot of fun.
Just go watch it.
They invite Christian hippies into the church, which a lot of people in the existing congregation are like, we shouldn't do this. These aren't our people and all this kind of thing. But then it's like, actually, it's a gospel opportunity. You could see it as a ministry problem and say these people are dirtying up our church and not doing a good job, or see it as a gospel opportunity to help people grow and know to love Jesus even more, and therefore love other people as well. I don't know where I was going with that, but I think...
Yeah, I don't know if this is a spicy thing to say.
Oh, spice it up.
So feel free to correct me or edit it out. Not that I don't think it's an edited outable thing.
People are listening to it. I'm going to edit it out.
No. This is me talking to you.
And Ek, our wonderful
and Ek.
producer.
I thought I had on Wednesday night, I was lying in bed and I had this thought of people don't all go to church for the same reason. Ooh. I personally go to church because I go to church partially because I think we can change the world through what we're doing. Mm-hmm. Like that's actually what I'm doing every Saturday night. This is what we're doing every week is world changing. Like that's the way I approach church. Mm-hmm. However, a lot of people don't do that. Because I think that's probably a weird thing to think, going to church, to be perfectly honest.
Is it?
I hope not, but I think it is. And
should it be?
I think that often people rock up to church because it's something they got to do, or it's something they really love, but it's just their little, I'm going to go get my community this week, or I'm going to go get my Jesus this week, and I'm going to do that, or it's I don't know. I think there's lots of reasons, but I don't think that's necessarily the predominant one, and I think that then means that we have those kind of differences in thought and differences in perspective within the church, because some of us are rocking up every week and going, this is changing the world, rocking up every week. And some people are like, oh yeah, this is just another thing I do. There was a way of responding to what you were saying, but I forgot while I was talking what you actually said and how to link it.
Too, yeah,
so sorry about that.
No, that's all right.
There was a link, but it's gone.
What I was thinking, well, maybe in relation to that, what I was thinking about that Wall Street Journal article was it said religious institutions are adapting to appeal to younger generations.
Okay.
And I'm thinking about this in context of Tim, our children's pastor, when he preached about salt and light. And how, as Christians, we can make the world a better place.
Available on YouTube.
It is available on YouTube. Check out the rest of the Soul Revival channel
in the description.
Oh, would you like to? Should we do a clip of it? 3, 2, 1.
As we live out these characteristics, we live out the Beatitudes in our daily life. As we do good deeds in and about the world, the decay of the world slows down. By being blameless and pure, without fault in a warped and crooked generation, there is this shining light of hope that pierces through the darkness of our world and presents a better way.
And we're back. It's not working. Do we need to be appealing?
Appealing?
What are you laughing at?
The banana song popped into my head. It's like, what's it like? It's so appealing.
Oh, yeah, no, I wasn't there.
It's the best.
Wow.
It's the rest. Banana phone. Anyway.
Banana phone.
Who's doing banana phone? I forget who that is.
It's just a YouTube video, I think.
Oh, banana phone. Yeah, do we need to be appealing? Brady, you haven't spoken for a while.
Do we need to be? No.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, because this is the discussion I'm trying to have. But is it helpful to be appealing?
Yes.
All right, let's finish that discussion. Expand, elaborate, expound.
We've been given a gospel that we're told in the Bible will be met with hostility and will also be met with open arms. So it's not going to be appealing to everyone. And thankfully, it's also not our responsibility to open people's eyes and hearts to it. That's what God's going to do. So we can plant a seed and we can water it, but God will make it grow.
Yeah.
So I think there is sense to, like we've said, we at Soul Revival, we have a pretty strong theology. Jesus changes everything. We have a pretty strong strategy to spread the love and truth of Jesus to everyone everywhere. But then our practice will look different depending on what we're doing. Like our practice at youth group looks different to our practice on Saturday night, which looks different to Sunday morning, which looks different to Bible study.
Yep.
Because they're different situations with different needs, where different things are appropriate and different resources are available or there. So I think we will have, it's up to us to change how we do things appropriately with our practice within that, but it's also not up to us to change the gospel to make it more appealing, because we don't need to.
Yeah, and that's where I was trying to get with it, is that, let's let it's partnering with Jesus to change the world.
Yeah.
Rather than maybe when people hear you say we can change the world, what we're doing, they're thinking they have to do it on their own, off their own backs.
It's not up to us to change the world.
Yeah, we're not doing the
like
changing.
God's going to change the world.
We got to sit there.
Yeah, and he already has.
Oh,
Like-
yeah.
Like he created it, and he what Jesus did has changed everything. And like I think it can become token Jesus changed everything. We say it a lot, but the reason why we say it a lot is because it's good to be reminded.
Yeah.
It's good to be reminded.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah, and it's just applicable to everything. Like it's helpful to know that Jesus changes everything. When you're having that hard conversation with someone about Christianity, it's also helpful to know when you're thinking about what you're going to buy at Coles. I think it's applicable. It is applicable to everything, and it changes the way you think about how you're going to spend your money, and also how you're going to have that hard conversation with someone about why Christianity is important to you, or why you would believe a certain thing.
Do you think in some aspects, if you are trying to be appealing, you're talking to someone about Jesus, does it take the pressure off to know that he's just
Yes.
going to do what he does?
Massively.
Yeah.
Massively. Because it suddenly becomes, you're not a salesman going door to door and selling a photocopier, right? Like
or
it's
an
not
encyclopedias?
Yeah, you're not rocking up and being like, this is the best encyclopedia you are ever going to read, and then being like, I don't want to read an encyclopedia.
Because history changes too.
Yeah.
So I need another one next year to be the best one.
But you're going, no, actually, this is the best thing ever. And I'm not going to communicate it well.
Yeah.
And I'm actually, and you're not saying this to the person necessarily, but you're like, inside you're going, I'm not going to do this right. I'm not going to do this well. And I'm going to fumble, or I'm going to whatever. But to be honest, at the end of the day, whatever I'm saying, God is working through me and he's working in their heart. It's not actually, my words aren't the thing and my thoughts aren't the thing that's doing the job. What's doing the job is the Holy Spirit working through me and working in them. And so it's this thing of, at the end of the day, actually, my personal efforts are not actually going to be, like, it's this weird double-edged sword of you need to like be on fire, go crazy, do the stuff, believe Jesus is going to change the world through you, but also he's going to do it. So like, if you do sit down and do nothing, he's still going to work, and it's going to be awesome.
How do you balance that? Do you think there's like, I'm responsible for my actions, but also God's in charge of everything? I find that hard to reconcile in my head.
I think
Those two things.
Yeah, you just have to live out what you think faithful service to Jesus is, and do the best that you can in whatever situation you're in. Because obviously don't touch another man's microphone. Obviously,
This is my podcast.
obviously your podcast. Yeah, okay. Obviously your capability has changed for gospel ministry when you had kids.
Yeah, that's right.
Like it looks different to what it would look like before you had kids. Having 3 kids, I'm sure, is different to having 1. You know what I mean? Like
very much
you
so.
go through different stages of your life, and that can look. Therefore, your practice of how you look as a Christian will look different. But as long as you're faithfully looking for those opportunities and trying your best to partner with Jesus, then you're going to be fine.
And so
And
much,
it's crazy how much you'll find, how many opportunities get placed in your life.
Yeah,
when
I
you
think
just
that's right.
open your heart and mind to it and start praying about it.
yeah,
It's crazy how many things you notice when you've been praying about them, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
yeah. It's so funny because it's this thing of like, you know what? I started that sentence hoping that my thought would come back to me, but it didn't come back to me. So sorry about that.
That's right. That's happened to me a couple of times on this one too. I don't know why.
It completely vanished.
Because we're just working so hard for the gospel.
We are working so hard for the gospel. No, it's gone.
Come on.
It has. It's in there.
Wait,
It's
for
there.
it. Just brood there for a while
Yeah.
Brad and I talk about how frustrated we are at you.
Okay, are we going to talk about how frustrated we are
Yeah.
or about?
Yeah.
So change your opinion on chips, Joel?
You're kidding me, aren't you?
Yeah, okay, so you're still wrong?
You set me up there.
Got him.
You got him, yes. Got him, yes.
And I was way too distracted by how funny that was.
Can you ask ChatGPT, do you prefer chicken salt or
Oh, yes.
plain salt?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm like, can you tell that this is the second podcast we've done in a couple of hours?
Getting silly.
Yep.
Silly.
Well, you guys now talk to each other while I ask ChatGPT.
Well, we're both
ChatGPT
right,
and
so
I are
we're
going to
really
have.
We are both right. Yes.
I do enjoy that, something that Ethan and I say all the time when people are like, hey, what have you been doing? It's like, just changing the world.
Yeah.
And it generally happens after midnight on a
Yeah.
Saturday night.
Yeah.
They're the conversations that change the world.
They are the conversations that change the world.
Yeah.
And that's that thing about time is the blessing we have after meals and getting to hang out after church. And the cool thing about being on a Saturday night rather than maybe on a Sunday night is that we can hang out all night and really get stuck into each other's lives or what's going on. It's really cool.
ChatGPT has an answer.
Yeah.
I said, the question I asked it was, do you prefer plain salt or chicken salt on your hot chips? As an artificial intelligence language model, I don't have a personal preference or taste buds. So I don't have a preference for plain salt or chicken salt on hot chips. However, I can tell you that some people enjoy the flavour of chicken salt, which is a seasoning that typically includes chicken flavoured powder, salt and other spices. Plain salt is a simple seasoning option.
Simple for a simple man.
That can enhance the natural flavour of the potatoes. Ultimately, the choice between plain salt or chicken salt on hot chips comes down to personal preference.
Well, why did we even start this?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Thanks, ChatGPT, for sitting on the fence more than anything else. Like, you could not sit on the fence anymore.
Well, the not having taste buds really does add to that.
Yeah, it's fair enough. Apparently, your taste buds change every 5 to 10 days.
Days? That's crazy. I don't know if I believe that.
Well, it's funny because my son told me that, and then when they say they don't like eating something, I'm like, well, your taste buds will change next time, so you'll probably like
That's
like it,
convenient.
or try it next time.
It's a great teaching tool.
Yeah,
I mean, parenting tool,
yeah. It's both.
I guess.
You know, as a parent, Ethan, you are also a teacher.
Are you a teacher? Are you a nurse? Yeah.
Am I a nurse?
Mathematician.
As a parent. What are you doing?
What are you doing?
What are you doing?
Oh.
That could be.
What else can we talk about?
On the
You remembered
on the gospel thing, whether it's
that gospel thing. I say
whether we
the
need to be
gospel thing.
appealing or not. I think what's really interesting is it is the most appealing thing ever on its own. It is also the least on its own.
Ooh,
but
more spicy takes from me.
There's this really cool. There's
So
this
you
really.
don't need salt to enhance it.
You don't need salt to enhance it.
You also don't need chicken salt then, by that argument.
Not on the gospel. I'm
Yeah.
not.
No.
It's the bread of life. But
What do
it
you
doesn't
reckon
need-
would happen if you put
Not
salt
the
on the
potato of
Bible?
life. Get a salty Bible.
Can you tell it's Friday afternoon?
Yeah. Sorry,
These
Ethan.
hot takes.
Hot, spicy, and salty. The Chip Lunch podcast. That's like
All of the above.
It's like we've got chicken salt, plain salt, and like a hot harissa, like spice laden. What were you saying, Ethan?
I don't know. I don't think
Sure,
it
Greaves
matters.
is the only one listening now.
I don't think it matters.
And
at
maybe
all.
Manda. Manda's pretty
She's pretty
hardcore on
hardcore.
that. On
Very
that.
hardcore.
Yeah.
Good work, guys. Get in the comments.
Yeah.
Who do you want to see on the podcast?
Yeah.
Let us know.
What do you want to see us do on the podcast?
Do you
It's like
disagree with anything we've said? Because it got a bit loose.
it's like a radio show now. It's
Yeah.
like just how they just do wilder and wilder things on the radio.
You make phone calls. We've done it before.
We could make phone calls. Who do you want to call? Who
Ghostbusters.
Who should we call?
Ghostbusters.
Call Lewis.
Nah.
No, he's already been on.
He needs to have a beef to get a part 3, isn't that what we said?
That's a good point. Yeah. Well, I mean, if anyone's going to come up with a beef, it's probably Lewis. But, you're calling someone.
Oh, who are we calling?
Hello.
Hey Graves, you're on the Chip Lunch podcast.
On the Chip Lunch podcast. Needed to call in the big guns, did you?
We needed to spice it up.
Do you have any?
On the Joel podcast.
Oh, he's been listening. He's been listening.
He's paying attention.
Yeah.
Do you have any wild insights?
Or
for
wise.
us?
Wise
Or wise insights?
In what context?
We don't at the moment. We don't have one.
What have you been thinking about this week, Michael?
not a lot. Bit of pressure.
Greaves, if you could change the world, how would you do it?
Oh, it's not something I could say on the podcast.
Because the real answer was, I don't have to. Jesus already has.
Yeah, I don't think I would have been as graceful as Jesus.
Amazing. No wisdom for us, Greaves?
Oh, man. That's not to put on the internet. It's late in the day and late in the week.
Which is why we're calling you, because we've fallen into...
I thought you were a big gun.
We're calling in the big guns because it's late in the day and late in the week and we're falling apart here.
Yeah, the big gun, he's no ammo in it.
Isn't this when you get X to do some sort of clever edit and then...
Yeah, we'll put your voice over like a talking politician or something.
Yeah.
Well, George Washington, yeah, like, meh, meh, meh. That's what it'd be like.
No, the episode's going to fade to black and there's going to be an inspirational black and white photo of you and a quote. And whatever quote you say next.
1986 to 2023. in memory of. Are you wearing black armbands? It's like, you know, when the Queen dies. I assume you've got a plan on the Chipmunks podcast to honour me when I die.
Yeah, we definitely do.
Just like the BBC.
He's already got his black armband on.
There's black tape.
There's gaffer tape, but it doesn't fit over my massive forearms. Look at that.
Huge.
This is why you need to watch on YouTube, guys.
Guns out, Drole.
Sun's not
I'm
out
so
here.
sorry to anyone that's still listening.
No one's still listening.
You will. You'll listen to this
It's
one.
going to be me.
Yeah.
And we'll see if Amanda puts in the comments she made it all the way to the end.
Yeah, you got to chuck a thing in the comments. It's like, oh, I can't believe that ending. You got to watch till the end. There's all those.
The post-credit scene.
Yes.
That's it. Yeah, cliffhanger.
Yeah, perfect. All right. Well, I think on that note, Greaves, do you want to sign us off?
Yeah. Oh, I can't do a one-way over the phone.
It really is an RIP,
You're gonna
isn't
have to
it?
edit in me doing a one-way somehow.
We'll
From
click.
last time you were on.
Yeah, we'll just do it from last time.
Yeah, cool. Back in the archives.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just get X to colorize it for me.
We should get you on Greaves to do a week away special. As we look forward to week away.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Or even at week away.
Yes. Part 2 of Greaves or part
Yep,
3?
Part
I
2.
don't remember.
Part
Part
2.
2.
Part 2 can
If you
just
can-
be a part 2. Part 3 has to be a B.
If you count his wife, it's part 3.
Yeah, true.
She's her own person. That's just
Oh, thanks for clarifying.
for all the manosphere people out there.
Don't say that. All right, hang up on him.
Well, that bit's gone.
On that note,
Signing off.
One way,
Michael,
guys.
one way.
Michael, do a one-way with us.
One way.